Hello dear friends, I am Dr. Mukesh Parekh and today I am present with another lecture on cultural studies. I am ready with my second writer who is very important in cultural studies, one who is remembered for the concept of hegemony. His name is Antonio Gramsci. He was an Italian journalist and activist famous for highlighting and developing the roles of culture and education. He is a Marxist thinker and studies theories of Marx in the light of economy, politics and class. He was imprisoned by the Italian fascist government and he died at the age of 46 because of serious ill health in prison. His most important works were written in jail and published posthumously, now known as the prison notebooks. I would ask my students to please write the prison notebooks. That can be a question in the net. His works throw light on sociology of culture, connection between the state and culture and the power relations. It means he studied that what are the causes for the state to run and maintain its power, and who those are in our society who create culture and how power works. And when I said that he's a Marxist thinker, it means he studied the theories of Marx and applied them on the capitalist society of Italy. And his major concern was, I should not concern Gramsci with capitalist society, because his major concern was not the capitalist society, but he studied, like I would like to say that he was famous for studying that Marx predicted that there will be a revolution because of this improving consciousness among the working class and this politics between the bourgeois and the proletariat people. And one day this working class will he predicted a kind of revolution, but then that revolution did not occur. So Gramsci is famous for studying like why that revolution delayed. So his study is based on like somebody hijacked that anger, that revolution, and why it happened that people in Italy, they favored the working class people, even favored the fascist government. So this is the base of Gramsci, like why Gramsci is remembered today. I also read about Gramsci that some of his ideas are outdated, but as you know that in the world of intellectual world, we people value ideas, and certain times certain terms which were coined and which gained intellectual currency, and I think we can use these terms now today to tell a lot many things. So Gramsci is a historical figure now, for giving us 2-3 ideas which are very important. I'm sorry when I say 2-3 ideas, though he has written 4 volumes of that book which is famous now as the prison notebooks. But mainly when we talk about for net, 3 or 4 ideas are important, and I'm going to talk about these 3 or 4 ideas in the coming lecture now. So let us move forward. We consider Gramsci as important as Raymond Williams because Gramsci's studies gave new insight in the field of cultural studies and significance of mass media. So I was talking about certain things are there which are changing the mindset of people, and that is media. And when we talk about people, so it means ultimately we are talking about culture. So what are the factors, the powers, from where those powers are coming, who are channelizing them, who are molding the minds of people? So this is another form of cultural studies. Like these kind of writers like Gramsci, he studies like how or from which echelons of society the power is trickling down, and who is responsible, whose interests are being served. I hope you understand my point. So his name is important, when we talk about cultural studies. And he was born in Sardinia in 1891, grew up in poverty, and he had experienced, friends, when I always talk about these kind of writers, mostly the people who are talking about cultural studies, these intellectuals came from the poor section of society. So he had first-hand exploitation and differentiation that he felt, because he belonged to the peasant family which was considered low in status. He left Sardinia, it was an island, to study at the University of Turin in northern Italy, at that time when the city was industrialized. So you can guess, like, when the city was being built, a kind of, as I used the term earlier, like a kind of neo-capitalism was on the rise. He spent his time amongst the socialists and Sardinian immigrants who were working there as workers, who were recruited as a staff for urban factories. So you can understand that, he had a first-hand experience, like what are making people poor, and then these poor people are not criticizing government. What happened that, they are ideologically favoring in favor of the governments. So he did not complete his formal education after looking at all these things, but I cannot say that he was not a trained one, because he was trained at the university, whatever days he spent there, but he was trained at the university as a Hegelian Marxist. I don't have that much time in this audio to talk about the Hegelian Marxist, but one should be clear to my students and listeners that Hegel was a philosopher who established the kind of binary, the dichotomy of understanding things. So he intensively studied the interpretation of Karl Marx's theory as a philosophy of praxis. I would ask my students to write this term, philosophy of praxis, Praxis, under Antonio Labriolo. This is the name of his mentor at the university, Antonio Labriolo, Labriolo. And this philosophy of praxis focused on the development of class consciousness and liberation of the working class through struggle. Now, what I mean here, that development of the class consciousness and liberation of the working class through struggle, that what are happening in the minds of the working class, what is or who is responsible for the kind of consciousness with which they work for the upper classes. He studied the role of the state in regulating social life and maintaining the conditions necessary for capitalism. Now, when I say that maintaining the conditions necessary for capitalism, there must be something happening, with the upper class. They must be doing something to coax, to use certain modes of power through which they are making people believe that whatever conditions they are living in are favorable to them. So that means creating a kind of consciousness, fabricating a kind of consciousness, and through this a capitalist economy can be maintained. So he studied this, what are the roles played by the regulating social life by the government, or who are the other channels who are regulating this kind of social life. Gramsci's work is a response to the false predictions of Marx's theory that revolution was inevitable. As I earlier said, that his major work is that people were waiting, whatever they read, written by Marx, and they were waiting like, a utopian world will come one day. But on the contrary, around World War, people found that Marxist ideology was altogether lost. And I would like to inform you, though it will be a kind of digression in between the lecture, that few days back I wanted to attend a seminar, though I could not go because of my busy schedule in the coaching. It was somewhere there in Tamil Nadu in university, the relevance of Marxism today. And I really read up, I wrote my paper also, but I could not read. And I was really at loss when I thought, like, how Marx is important today. We feel that, really these capitalists, this late capitalism, this neo-capitalism or neo-colonialism has really hijacked the ideas of Marx. And anywhere, you just go to the world, you will find that anywhere the ideas of Marx or Russia has already been disintegrated. Okay. And in India, in Kerala, communism was there. In Bengal, communal Marxism was, quite high. Look at the kind of parties in India, political parties who earlier used to favor Marxism. There is no Marxism now. Only the fascism is looming large around us. So I'm just, making it relevant so that we people can really understand the ideas of Gramsci. That there are certain things, it can be the forces of religion, it can be the ideas of entertainment, it can be the thing that the roots. You can make people think about their roots anyhow. You can make people believe a kind of sociology or an idea which can make them think that a bright future will come. And through this, they are coerced, they are forced, they are their consent is fabricated, and this is called hegemony, which I will discuss in the coming few minutes. So I was talking about that he was involved with the philosophy of Praxis, and Gramsci's work is a response that I already have discussed, that it was a response against the false prediction of Marxist theory. So here comes the concept of hegemony or cultural hegemony. The spread of, it means I'm explaining the word cultural hegemony now. I'm trying actually. The spread of a dominant ideology. Dominant ideology means the ideology of the ruling class, or the ideology of the bourgeois, the rich people, or the people in power, expressed through social institution. Now, what does it mean when I say social institutions? It can be university, it can be anything where people get together. It can be a family, it can be a movie. Social institution, it can be marriage, that gather people to consent to the rule of the dominant group. It means the ruling class or the bourgeois or the people in power, they make the less privileged people feel that whatever is going on is in their favor. This is called hegemony. Now, this hegemony, according to Gramsci, blunts critical thoughts and thus barriers to revolution. So here comes the answer, like what Marx predicted, that a revolution will occur by the proletariat classes. Why it did not occur? Because this hegemony, the kind of fabricated consciousness or a consent which is taken, from the public, from the working class, and their mind is blocked. There are they can't think now about any kind of opposition, they can't think out of this box thinking, and so revolution cannot occur. Friends, I would like to add here the role of party politics, which in Russia, because as you know that Gramsci was interested in the Russian politics. So the concept of party and ideology, these are also important here, but I would like to be very brief here so that my lecture can be understood by the weaker section of students also. Very important concept here of Gramsci is the modern educational institutions like higher schools and universities and colleges. He says that these are the basic elements of cultural hegemony. Modern Western universities, modern societies, and today I would say like movies and malls and newspapers, television. These are spreading cultural hegemony. And his famous essay, like The Intellectuals, in inverted commas, and another essay is On Education. In these two essays, he has advocated for organic intellectuals, because Gramsci says that intellectuals are not, people who are faultless. Intellectuals are somewhere favoring, the dominant class at times. From all classes, he says that we should work so that we can produce organic intellectuals. And what are organic intellectuals? They are from all classes and walks of life, who would understand and reflect the worldviews of the diversity of people. They should not come from a particular section of society. And another important essay is Traditional Intellectuals. In this essay, he criticized for reflecting the worldview of the ruling class. So these intellectuals ultimately help in cultural hegemony. For example, suppose I am a professor and I go in a class, and yeah, it happens many times, friends, that we are so biased. If we don't read, if we don't deconstruct our minds, like I'm a Hindu, and I have found myself biased many times when I'm discussing the roles of different things in Indian democracy, and I find that many times I cannot stop myself thinking in line with the ruling power. If that ruling power somewhere serving my interest, now interests are also not neutral. Interests are somewhere politically motivated, economically motivated. So I hope you understand the point, like what is cultural hegemony. So I have been using the word fabricated. So hegemony is also called manufactured consent. You can make it a point, like it is a manufactured consent. I mean, it is not natural consent. Okay, it is manufactured. Like certain things are so shown to you that people are they feel that this is their natural consent. George Orwell's novel 1984 comes to my mind to explain this. That if you read that novel, you find that how a keen observation of society is being done, how history is being changed, how certain slogans are induced, drilled down into the minds of the people in that novel. For example, war is peace. Isn't it ridiculous? And and a scene comes that even children are so trained, their minds are so manufactured that they are serving the government itself. So this is called hegemony, that you lose that power of your mind to think critically. You don't use your logic. You just become a sheep, and you start following your leaders. He was now I'm sharing certain facts which can be asked in the net exam. He was imprisoned for 4 years. That is an important question. They can ask you, like for how many years he was there in the jail. He was imprisoned for 4 years, from 1929 to 33, and these are there are 4 volumes of his book. It is called in Italian language. It is called Quaderni del Carcere. So carcere is something to do with incarceration. Is in jail, and quaderni mean to say a kind of diary. So the Quaderni del Carcere, or the prison notebooks. Other important phrase he coined is historic block. Friends, I have with me this Norton anthology of theory and criticism, and I was reading that and came to know about this phrase. So you should write it in your notebook. Historic block, which means social groups are dynamically created in specific historical moments. This is very important as per cultural studies are concerned, that we cannot say that humanity is a static one. There are certain blocks, there are certain mindset of people, there are certain communities of different thought, and they are created in historical specific moments. Gramsci's 3 concepts of intellectuals that I already have talked about, and articulation, like how to speak and who make us speak, and the formation of the historic blocks. These three concepts get culminated in his concept of hegemony. One more thing I would like to add in this brief audio, that Marx's concept of ideology is static. Friends, we should read it carefully. You should go to my Marxism. There is a video on YouTube on Marxism. There I have talked about like what ideology is. You know that it is also called false consciousness, but it is static. He says that the economic interest, you know, he just Marx and Hegel, they got stuck on one thing, that is economy you know, decides certain you know, mindset, okay, interests. That is static. That is the economic interest of the ruling class, okay. Whereas Gramsci's concept of hegemony is dynamic. I hope you understand the meaning of static. Static means something which is not moving, somewhere which is stationary, and dynamic means something is happening, something is being done, something is moving. And it means a ruling class can maintain power by continuously creating coercion and consent. I have been using these two terms again and again. Coercion, C-O-E-R-C-I-O-N. Coercion means people are coaxing you. Yeah, they are making you do something. They're forcing, you know, in an indirect way. And then, you know, emanating, consent is emanating from you, or say you give your consent that, you know, they can be in power. My tongue in my cheek, I can, you know, say about you know, Hindutva, the agenda of Hindutva. I am a pure Hindu, but I feel that in democratic countries like India or America or England, particular religion and its history should not be hurled upon people, or they should not, it should not be you know, used to make people think that this is the only thing, you know, that can sustain them in a democracy. So that is the use of power when they you know, when they give their votes to the ruling person, that, you know, be in power. I can equally take this case, you know. I'm sorry friends, I don't speak more now on this topic, because, you know, here people can be a bit biased about me. And the last but not the least point is that major cultural theorists, his name is Stuart Hall, and another one is Dick Hebdige, H-E-B-D-I-G, Hebdige. Two theorists I'm talking about, major cultural theorists, Stuart Hall and Dick Hebdige. They use the concept of hegemony in the sense Gramsci has used to understand culture and power, in particularly in Britain. So in my next audio or video, I'll be talking about the next important writer. Thank you very much, friends.